As well as the World Championship title, there are World Cup points on offer as well. One of 14 men could still win that much coveted overall title this season. It's very tight at the top, but realistically, the challenge is between two men. Rikko Gross of Germany, Mr. Consistency, 14 out of 14 races in the points so far. He is up against Ulе-Éinar Bьёрндален of Norway, the Olympic sprint champion, also the winner of the Biathlon Cup in the early stages of this year. He's the fastest skier on the squad and the new leader after the 5th place he gained in the sprint event on Thursday. 11 places up on his main rival Rikko Gross. So very tight at the top of the Men's World Cup, and a slip up by either of those two could be very costly indeed. Майгуров of Russia are obviously hoping that they both make mistakes today, because he's not out of the contest, but he's 29 points adrift of the lead of Björndalen, and so a win by him could see him right up in contention with the two best. Conditions a little bit better today than we've seen on the previous 2 days of racing. They had an individual race, the long 20-kilometer for the men on Tuesday, a sprint event on Thursday, and they've had 48 hours to recover from that, and they're back in action again today. Another sprint event, 10 kilometers, 2 shoots, and it's Jay Häkkinen of the United States, the junior world champion in the individual event in '97. He leads the field away, and really looking for a couple of good results at the end of the season to put him in good spirits for the summer training. His best this year was 24th in Antolz, getting into the World Cup points, just 2 points won by Häkkinen, but if you do it once, you know you can do it again. Another North American going next, Erik Jensen of Canada. Way down the field in the last of the sprint events, 47th. He was nearly 2.5 minutes behind with just 3 penalties incurred. So he's got to find an extra minute or so on the ski speed if he is going to contend with the top 10. Now, one of the interesting factors in today's race that most of the top names have elected to go in the front group. We've got Eiderhoff starting now. Рафаэль Пуаре of France starts at number 5. Viktor Майгуров, he goes at number 6. Carrara at 11. Ulе-Éinar Bьёрндален, the new World Cup leader, he goes at 16. And believe it or not, Rikko Gross is drawn 1 place behind him. So a real battle between this season's 2 best competitors, starting at 16 and 17. That's at 10:08 and 10:08:30. So not long to wait before that drama unfolds. Kyoji Suga, the best of the Japanese, although not had the most successful of weeks, 42nd and 38th, but he's now skiing well enough to get himself up among the best, but has had a few problems with his rifle over recent weeks. Рафаэль Пуаре, leader of the World Cup in Ruhpolding. He lost a little bit of form in Antolz and, of course, at the Olympic Games. Poiré coming back with 2 good races here in Pokljuka, 21st in the individual, right up into 2nd place in the sprint event on Thursday. The 5th time that the Frenchman has been on the podium this season, and only missing victory by 0.3 of a second. Well, Poiré has a hard task. He's got to fight off Viktor Майгуров. Майgurov's currently 3rd in the World Cup standings. A total of 206 points compared with Björndalen, who has 235. So if Майгуров can win today and Björndalen fails to get into the top 25, he may well end up at the top of the table. That's an unlikely scenario, but strange things have happened in biathlon, and we know that 1 missed shot in this event can cost you up to 10 places. So a lapse of concentration by Björndalen may well see him in trouble. Erik van Leuven of the Netherlands just starting. Came in last in the individual race. Slight improvement, 96th out of the 109 starters. But Van Leuven's problem has been in the standing shoot. added to the fact that he skis around a minute and a half slower than the best over this 10-kilometer distance. Jean-Marc Chablos of Switzerland, the mainstay from the Swiss team, but despite a very good start in the individual race, he's not managed to keep it going throughout the whole race. Right down in 73rd in the last sprint event, and Chablos needing a couple of top 20 finishes to brighten up his season. Paavo Purinen, one of the men, having a great finish to his season, and noticeable that the Finns have started to come to the top. The likes of Ville Räikkönen, Eloranta and Purinen all getting in the top 20 in recent weeks, and that's a good turn up for the books, and let's hope that that spreads the word of biathlon throughout Finland, because there's no shortage of talented athletes up there. But cross-country and jumping still the two favoured winter sports in that part of Scandinavia. Semionin of Poland. Now, if we get to see him shooting, he's been very consistent over the last month or so with the rifle, but just lost a little bit of ski speed since he came back from Japan. And he's about a minute off the pace of the best Norwegians. This man, however, is not. Pierre Alberto Carrara, regular top 20 place, and still riding on a wave of success. Silver medal in the Olympic individual event, and a really brilliant Olympics for the best of the Italians. Maluhin of Latvia, and the Latvians starting to impress. If you were with us during the Nagano coverage, you will have seen the Latvian team in the relay leading at the halfway stage, and really they just need one more man of the quality of Maluhin and Nakums, and they may well be a challenger to the might of the Norwegians and Germans. At the moment, their fourth man, Upinieks, who starts much later down the field, is a minute or so slower than the three best. But the time will come, I'm sure, when we see the Latvians contending for podium places. Ludwig Gredler, popular figure from Austria, and it would be nice to see him finish the season with some good results, but one noticeable feature about Gredler's season is the fact that he hasn't shot clear as yet, and when he does so, we're likely to see him on the podium. But it hasn't happened for him so far this season. Maybe Gredler is due a successful race as Borovic of Estonia heads out. 14 of the 82 competitors now underway. So the course the same as it was for Thursday's sprint event. The first loop of just over 2.5 kilometers is relatively easy. They climb from an altitude of 1340 up to around 1365. So not a massive height difference on this first loop. The big climb comes in the second loop, where they climb up over 50 vertical meters, and that is where the skiers are going to have their advantage, and no more so than Ulе-Einar Bjåndalen. Just about to start, his fan club are out. This man, the new leader of the World Cup, if he can win again today, there is every chance that the World Cup title will be his this year. Well, he's quite a phenomenon, and there was one stage of the season we were thinking that he had made a mistake by not racing in Kontiolahti, the third of the World Cup meets. But Bjåndalen has showed us that it was probably a good move. He's come away with an Olympic title in this sprint event, and he is now leading the World Cup, having been the most consistent athlete since the Christmas break. He hasn't been out of the top 10, so watch out for Bjåndalen. Just started at number 16. Rikko Gross starting at 17 behind him as we watch Рафаэль Пуаре of France, and not a very good encouraging start for the Frenchman. one missed target already, and Pуаре knows that that may well cost him. Pуаре, who missed one in the standing on Thursday, but still managed to come in second position. But if you were with us on Thursday, you'll remember that the French women dominated the top 5. They had, in fact, 3 of the top 4 positions. Only Norway managed to split the French trio. And when that happens, you have to wonder what the reason is. Obviously, there's nothing you can do to alter the shooting performance, and they must be credited for that. But the word is that their ski preparation was superb. They had the fastest skis in the wet conditions, and that may well have been the major factor in their remarkable success. Майгуров goes out with a bad start, and that doesn't do his World Cup challenge any good. Remember, Майгуров currently lying in 3rd position. Jean-Marc Chabloz now. He's shown us some enormous potential this season, but on so many occasions he's been close and then lost concentration in the latter stages of the race. 3 with 3 so far from Chabloz, and in the sprint events he has quite a good record of going clear. He did so in Östersund, he did so in Ruhpolding in the 2nd of the sprint events there, and Chabloz goes out clear after the prone, and this is looking good. He's capable of top 5 if he shoots clear and skis well. I'm not convinced he's fast enough yet to take the top position, but he has the lead at the moment. A 5-second lead then for Switzerland's Marc Chabloz, and a good start for him in contrast to that of Рафаэль Пуаре and Viktor Майгуров of Russia. Pier Alberto Carrara, who's been the strength of the Italian team this season, and delighted the Italian fans with that silver medal in the Olympics in the individual event, and that was perhaps the best finish of the season. Carrara, an early starter in that event, came in and recorded a very good time indeed, and it wasn't until Hannevold of Norway came through, one of the last starters, to beat him by just 5.5 seconds, and Hannevold making up 20 seconds over the last 2 kilometers. So Carrara at one stage thought he had the gold medal in the bag, but just missing out at the last minute. Well, he settles down well after a shaky start, and as is so often the case, the first and the last targets are the hardest to hit. The first because you're not settled, maybe rushing the preparation, just pushing it 4 or 5 seconds too fast, and the last because that's where the psychology takes over. If you've hit the first 4, you start to have a little bit of disbelief in your ability, but Carrara missing the first on this occasion, and he has a little bit of skiing to do now if he wants to get himself into the top 10. Now, Gredler, one of the veterans on this tour, has missed one. Another of the veterans to be starting later is Alexander Popov, and I've got my money on him for an outside chance. Popov, who came so close to getting a medal in the Olympics, but then the sprint event cancelled. He had recorded the fastest time, he was home and dry, and then halfway through the race, the conditions deteriorating, visibility down to around 40 meters, impossible to continue, and the race was recorded null and void. And on the second day of competition, Popov was right out of the top 50, whereas this man, Ulе-Éinar Bjёrndalen, came through to take the title. Now, just have a look at those figures on the left. A 94% hit rate in the prone position throughout the season. Now, it's even higher since the Christmas break. He's up around 96%, so it really would be a surprise to see him miss. And just watch how he takes his time. He's in absolutely no rush at all. He changes the sights just 1-2 clicks to the right, so clockwise down and left, so he's moved the sights to the left because of the wind speed, now recorded at 2.2, 2.5, it's picking up all the time, 4.1. This is not good news for Bjåndalen, but he's obviously moved the sights well. Variable wind, watch the anemometer at the top of the screen, and you can see the difficult conditions that Bjåndalen is having to cope with. A slow shoot by his standards, 45 seconds already, but if this one goes down, it will have paid off. Brilliant, very intelligent performance by the Norwegian, and that is why he is now the leader of the World Cup. Rikko Gross just alongside him. Remember, started 30 seconds behind him, and Gross hasn't really made up any ground at all at the moment, but if he goes clear, he won't have lost any either. So just keep an eye on the time splits. Gross, it seems, is clear. We missed his last shot, but we'll get confirmation. If he heads off around the penalty loop, we know he has missed. But he hasn't. He has gone clear as well, and Gross goes into the lead, just 6 seconds up on Bjåndalen. So Rikko Gross with the advantage at the minute. Remember, just 1 point between those two in the World Cup. That is what this day's race is all about. Tomorrow, the second phase of the pursuit race. And if you're unfamiliar with that, I should tell you that the finishing times from today's race will determine your start position in tomorrow's pursuit. Just 45 of the best from today will qualify for the second phase tomorrow. That's to avoid too much congestion on the range. Normally, the top 60 go through. Dračev so far matching Gross and Bjåndalen, and he is going to record a quick time, another 7 or 8 seconds before he goes out and crosses the split line. So a good start from Dračev, but at the moment it's still Rikko Gross of Germany, but just denied by Dračev. Lots of the big names at the top. We'll be back just after these commercial messages. Stay with us. For the men, the third World Cup to be held here in Pokljuka, but the story is already unfolding. On the bottom of the screen, you can see Dračev leads after the first shoot. Rikko Gross of Germany, currently in second place in the World Cup. He is now in second place, just under a second behind Dračev. Jean-Marc Chablos of Switzerland holds the third place, but just behind him is Ulе-Éinar Bjёrndalen of Norway, also shooting clear. He's skiing well, but taking his time in the range. So clever tactics from Bjåndalen. He knows that his aim today is to finish ahead of Rikko Gross. He's got to try and open the gap at the top of the World Cup table, and he's in a position to do so. If Bjåndalen can stay within 5 seconds or so of Rikko Gross after the second shoot, then the chances are that he'll be able to overhaul him on the final 2.5 kilometer ski to the finish. So Bjåndalen goes through ahead of Jean-Marc Chablos, who shot a little bit quicker but is skiing slower. Alexei Aidarov also in the top 6 after the first shoot, comes in, and our first chance to see them in the prone position. Remember, 5 shots in each position in the shorter sprint event, and then in the pursuit tomorrow, 2 shots in each, so 20 targets to hit in the pursuit, but only 12.5 kilometers to ski, so the shooting is absolutely critical, and the tension runs very high indeed as they race head to head. Aidarov with 9 from 9 so far. This is a nice start from him, and Aidarov is going to take the lead. 18:15 at the moment. He'll go ahead of Jay Häkkinen, whose time of 18:57 is impressive when you see that he's already skied 2 penalty loops. An extra 300 meters for Häkkinen, and his skiing really has come to good form over the last couple of weeks. And as soon as he tidies up his shooting, we are going to see the American Jay Häkkinen at the top of the World Cup table. And that would be a refreshing change in proceedings, and certainly encouraging for the remainder of the American and Canadian biathletes. Perner of Austria, 5:50 at the moment, so he's on schedule to hit the top 6 if he shoots clear. Barilla of Lithuania has just come in and gone ahead of Jean-Marc Chablos. So 5 with 5, and the biathletes coping very well with the changeable wind conditions. When they zeroed the weapons just over an hour ago, there was absolutely no wind whatsoever. So the word must be out that you've got to keep an eye on the flags in the range, and it's not a question of a consistent wind building up. It's changing every second. So those who have shot clear deserve a lot of credit for doing so in the prone position. It won't make so much difference in the standing. Remember, the target is that much bigger. 4.5 centimeters across in the prone position, over 11.5 in the standing. Jean-Marc Chablos clear after the first prone. He's still up in the top 5, but Рафаэль Пуаре has come in with a good time after the second shoot, 18:48. Still Eiderhoff leading, 18:28. The penalty loop a little bit quicker than Thursday, taking around 25 seconds today, as opposed to the 30 seconds it was taking on Thursday. So the missed penalty shot's not quite as expensive. One miss for Chablos, and well, it's not a bad performance by him, but he knows that if he's going to be up with the best, he needs to be clear. Best this season was 7th in Ruhpolding. He shot clear on that occasion, so really, a top 15 is still within reach, and that will give him plenty of World Cup points to take through to the end of the season. World Cup finals, remember, scheduled for next week. Hockfilsen was due to be the venue, but like so many other places, they're having problems, and it may well be rescheduled to take place in Bad Gastein resort at 1,600 meters. So by all accounts, they should have a fair amount of snow. The temperature's that much colder at that altitude. But that will be a hard finish to the season if they're asked to race over 1,600 meters. Pokljuka, this venue for 4 races, is at 13:30 right up to 13:85. So that won't make too much impact on the heart and lungs. It's when you get over 1,500 meters that it really starts to hurt. Maluhin started at number 12. Clear after his first shoot, a little bit slower than the best so far. We're really waiting for the likes of Björndalen, who started at 16 and should be in the next minute or so. Rikko Gross started just 30 seconds behind Björndalen, number 17. He'll be approaching the range right now. Vladimir Drachёv going well, so those of you who support the Russian biathletes will be a little bit encouraged by that. Майгуров not so good on his prone. He missed targets there, and that hasn't done his World Cup challenge any good at all, as Gredler is in the range. And Gredler, one of the Austrians who's capable of staying with the best on his day. And Maluhin just completing his 2 loops. 18:26 the time at the moment. He's skiing well. He's going to be just outside the time of the best. Eiderhoff in second place with 18:28. No misses then for Eiderhoff. And it seems that he's lost a little bit of his skiing form. Eiderhoff, who was very impressive in the early part of the season, winning, of course, the pursuit race in Lillehammer, coming from 10th in the sprint right up through to 1st in the pursuit. But he shot clear on that occasion, and anyone who shoots clear in tomorrow's pursuit race has a ticket to the top 3. Björndalen, this is bad news. 1 miss already. Rikko Gross will be encouraged by that when he comes into the range. 2 misses now for Björndalen. This is critical stuff. He must clear this last one. He's taken his time today in the shooting, and he's not skiing as fast as he has been over recent weeks. And 2 loops then for Bjørndalen, the leader of the World Cup. If Rikko Grosс, who started 30 seconds behind, can go clear, we may see a reversal of fortunes, and Gros back in the yellow bib for the final World Cup race here in Pokljuka, which takes place tomorrow. 10 o'clock the start is due, and we'll be bringing you live coverage of that event. And for me, it is the most spectacular of events now on the biathlon circuit. Rikko Gros in the range. He will know full well that Bjørndalen has missed 2, and that is maybe 50-second penalty. 1 has missed for Gros, so it's going to be very tight between the 2. Just 1 penalty then for Rikko Gros. Bjørndalen will go out first, and we'll watch the time splits. Very tight indeed between these 2. As Bjørndalen heads out, Rikko Gros is yet to go into the penalty loop, and I think Gros will have an advantage of around 5 or 6 seconds. Now, a real opportunity for Vladimir Dračёv. Clear after the first shoot and very fast, contending with the same time as Rikko Gros, but I'm not sure that caption was right. It's Vladimir Dračёv wearing 19. Don't be confused by that. So 1 miss then for Dračёv. He started a minute behind Rikko Gros, and his time is going to be close. 18:11 for Gros, Bjørndalen 18:16. Just 5 seconds between them, and Bjørndalen is the quicker of the 2 skiers. So it's going to be a very tight run again between the German and the Norwegian, the 2 leaders of the World Cup, absolutely neck and neck. The tension will go on till the next race on Sunday, and there's little doubt that the World Cup is not going to be decided until the very final race. Dračёv goes out, he has the lead, 24 seconds the margin. So it's all drama as we get confirmation of the standings after the second shoot, but remember, only the first 20 have been through that stage. Dračёv leads from Gros and Bjørndalen. Those names, of course, are all in the top 15 of the World Cup, but the 2 most important, Bjørndalen and Gros, the 2 leaders at the moment. Dračёv is too far out of it to be able to contend, but certainly if he gets a victory here today, he will find himself back up into the top 10 where he belongs. Dračёv has had a fairly mixed season by his standard. He's been outside the top 50 on 1 occasion, but showed us that when he's on form he can take titles. He's yet to shoot clear this year, but he's missed just 1 today, but he's skiing a little bit faster than we've seen in recent weeks. So the Russian has the advantage. 24 seconds was the margin. There's no way that Bjørndalen is going to be able to pull back that sort of time distance over 2.5 kilometers. But the Norwegian is going to have to fight to beat Rikko Gros, who had an advantage of 4.5 seconds when they left the range for the second time. And most eyes will be on that, although the coaches, with the help of their telescopes, have to spot every round of each of their athletes to just ensure that the rifles have remained zeroed. No instructions, of course, allowed to be given on the range, but once they're out onto the tracks, then they can get some advice to the assistants. And the big teams have no shortage of helpers. I was amazed to hear that the American team had 19 assistants up in Nazoa Onsen. And as ever, the Americans putting in 100% effort in all departments, but you have to question how effective it is to have so many people there all wanting to make their decisions. And some of the most successful teams just having 2 or 3 helpers and coming away with considerably better results. Svend Fischer in picture, a very characteristic style, powerful build, and only switches to the higher tempo in the very steep sections of the course. This is a technique known as skate 3 now, used by Ludvig Gredler. A technique we see more commonly with the cross-country skiers. And a big difference between cross-country and biathlon technique. The biathletes tend to go for the slower tempo to avoid too much movement of the rifle. But Gredler comes in, 2 penalties. He has the lead by 3 seconds over Eiderhoff. So he's taken 45 seconds plus off Eiderhoff over the 10 kilometers. Well, we're still waiting for the likes of Bjørndalen to come in through the finish area. He's only 4 or 5 minutes away from that stage now. But Bjørndalen finds himself in 3rd place after the second shoot. Ahead of him is Rikko Gross of Germany, and even further ahead, Vladimir Dračev. Neither of the top 3 shooting clear. 1 penalty each for Dračev and Gross, Bjørndalen with 2. And that time of 17:47 is very impressive indeed, and may well stand right the way through to the 82nd finisher. Starting last today is Peltola of Finland. And of the last 5 starters, I think really we're looking perhaps to Peter Sendel, who could cause an upset, but his ski form would suggest it's unlikely. And perhaps Reni Katarinusi can come through to have a good race at this stage of the season. So Bjørndalen finishes 23:55. He's 13.3 seconds quicker than Ludvig Gredler, and that would suggest that he is not on his best skiing form. He showed some brilliant skiing in the individual race. He struggled on Thursday, and it's going to be very, very tight. Another 10 seconds then for Rikko Gross. I think we're going to find that Gross comes in ahead of Bjørndalen, and that is very important. 5 seconds, the margin. And Rikko Gross has taken time off Bjørndalen, only 0.5 of a second. But he is now finding himself able to contend with the Norwegian on ski speed. So Gross will go back to the top of the World Cup table. And with 3 individual races remaining, it couldn't be tighter. Dračev is definitely going to depose Gross from that top spot. But the very fact that the top 3 at the moment have all missed targets means that the door is still open for anyone who can shoot clear. 28 seconds the margin. Dračev is absolutely flying. Well, Dračev leads from Gross and Bjørndalen. We'll be back in just a minute with the remainder of this 10-kilometer. Welcome back to Pokljuka. We're now into the second half of the starting field, and the news at the moment is that Dračev leads with Rikko Gross in 2nd place at the finish and Bjørndalen. But Sergei Rojkov as Russia has come through to take 2nd place after that second shoot. 17:59 the difference, and if Rojkov can keep the pace going, he should find himself ahead of Rikko Gross at the finish order. Now, what Bjørndalen has got to hope for is that Rojkov doesn't end up between himself and the German Rikko Gross. And in fact, the more people that finish above Rikko Gross, the better for Bjørndalen, because once you're out of the top 5, there's only 1 World Cup point awarded for each position you go down. So if that happens, then there's a chance that Gross and Bjørndalen will go into tomorrow's pursuit race, not only starting just 4 seconds apart, but also level on World Cup points. Svend Fischer, 1 target miss for him, and you can see his time already of 6:20 is well in contention with Frank Luck of Germany, who's having another good sprint race. Remember, he won the event on Thursday, and Svend Fischer not skiing at his best this week, and not likely to trouble the top 3 despite that 1 miss. Kari Kumpu of Finland up there in the top 15 again, so he's having an encouraging finish to his season. Rojkov, the only one of the top 3 to shoot clear. He's 12 seconds behind Dračev. He's about the same margin ahead of Rikko Gross. Bjørndalen down in 4th place at that stage. We know that he is currently in 3rd at the finish. But as I said, that the fact that Dračev, Gros and Bjørndalen have all missed targets does mean that the race is far from decided. They're the quickest skiers, but they've had at least 25 seconds added to their time because of the penalties incurred. And we're now waiting for Rojkov to come in to finish. I can tell you he started at number 28 and should be due in to the finish any minute now. Started just 4.5 minutes behind Vladimir Dračev, and hopefully we won't miss his finish, as Sachurin, perhaps the best standing shot on the circuit. 96% is his average, quite tremendous. And he doesn't take long to settle down either. 10 seconds, that's the quickest, but his percentage will fall with that miss. Sachurin rushing it a little, and that is uncharacteristic of him. Perhaps he thought that a chance of victory was there. He knew the news that Dračev had missed, and had he shot clear, he would have been on level terms. But he's got another 50 seconds of penalty skiing to do, and Sachurin is going to find himself out of the top 5, and that is very disappointing for the Belarusian. And still we wait for news of Sergei Rojkov to come across the finish. Only 25th on Thursday, having missed 2 in the standing. He's improved by 2 today. A perfect shoot by the Russian Rojkov, and he's heading for one of the top 3 positions. Which one is it going to be? Dračev, I think, will be safe in first spot for the moment, as we switch to Frank Look, who's missed his first target of the day, and that's going to put him out of... well, certainly going to keep him away from Drachev's door with a time of 17:45. He's really slowed things down now. And lost his rhythm in the shooting, so Frank Look is unlikely to make it a double sprint victory here in Pokljuka. Remember, he was clear on Thursday. He only missed 1 target in the individual 20-kilometer, so he has hit a total of 29 out of 30 so far this week until this shoot. So another 2 go missing, and Frank Look will find himself outside the top 10. 2 penalties still to ski, and my feeling is that Rojkov must have finished by now, and hopefully we'll switch to the finish to let you know exactly where he is. And any Norwegians watching will certainly be keen to find out whether he has finished ahead of Rikko Gross or between Rikko Gross and Ulе-Einar Bjørndalen. Ilmar Briccis, just 1 penalty, 17:40, but he's quick, and he may well find himself up with a top 5. So a good run by Briccis, but if that last shot had gone down, it may well have been his first victory. And the Latvians really are proving that they can not only get up to the top, but they can get there consistently. And the likes of Briccis, Nakums, Maluhins are all names to watch, certainly in the World Cup finals, this time next week, and then again next season. So 18:16, and Briccis goes out in 4th, and he is just ahead of Ulе-Einar Bjørndalen. And well, that is going to certainly increase the tension in the Norwegian camp. The last thing they want is someone to finish between Rikko Gross and Ulе-Einar. But Briccis is threatening to do so, having recorded a time just a few tenths of a second, 3/10 to be precise, quicker than Bjørndalen. The form book would have that order being reversed at the finish, though. Räikkönen, another of the Finns who's come to the fore and showing us exactly why he won the bronze medal in the Olympic sprint event. 1 penalty in the prone, but shooting fast and clear in the standing, and his time is going to be good enough for the top 15. And Räikkönen now becomes the best of the Finns to go through the second shoot, with a time 56 seconds behind the lead of Vladimir Dračev. So if Räikkönen can just gain back 10 seconds or so, he's going to get himself another top 10 finish, and a very encouraging finish to his season indeed. Well, here's a man who could change the order at the top without too much problem. Frode Andersen, very quick on his day, silver medalist in the Olympic sprint event, coming in just behind Ulе-Эйнар Björndalen. His prone shoot, the percentage is very low indeed, 75%. That is why he did not find himself in the Norwegian relay team, and certainly surprised him and many of the Norwegian fans. And in hindsight, it may well have cost the Norwegians the relay. They ended up in second, just behind the German team, despite a brilliant charge by both the Björndalen brothers in the last two legs. The Germans held off with Frank Luck, the anchor man, holding his nerve and coming through to take the victory by a margin of 6.5 seconds. Andersen, though, if he shoots clear, may well take the victory today and make it 7 Norwegian wins out of the 15 races this season. So 5 with 5 for Andersen, and the prone position does tend to be his worst discipline. So a good start by him, and he will go out just behind Frank Luck. But remember, Luck has missed targets on the standing. Rikko Gross also missed targets on the standing. And a chance then for the Norwegian, Frode Andersen, to take the lead. The ski conditions have held out, and so not so much of a disadvantage to start late today. Harald Hannevold, a slower time by him, the Olympic champion in the individual, comes in with 53.4 off the winning time, and that's with only 1 penalty shoot. So Hannevold not on his best skiing form, but more to the point is that Dračev is absolutely flying and the current leader at the finish. Still waiting to hear news of Sergei Rojkov. Remember, second position for Rojkov after that standing shoot. He's gone clear. He's just 12 seconds behind Dračev at the 2/3 marker, and unlikely to make an impression on his teammate, but certainly Rojkov is skiing well enough to hold on to second place. So 2 Russians going well. Kobalov is not going to make it 3. 2 targets missed, another 50 seconds onto his time, so he's going to come out at around 7:12 and find himself out of the top 20. Sashurin comes in, and well, it would have been a very impressive ski had he gone clear, but he rushed those last shoots. 1:15 is the margin, and he certainly would have been in the top 5, but it's not to be for Sashurin today. He goes into 14th at the moment. Magura of Japan, and that's a better shooting performance by him, but he's a little bit slower than the best, and the sprint event favors the faster skier. The penalty for shooting normally is far less than it is in the individual. The reason for that is that in the individual event you have a minute added for every missed target, and Egil Kielland is one man who's finding that to be the case. Second place in the individual on Tuesday, and a poor start by him. Number 44, Ilmar Briccis, coming in to finish. And you can see that Briccis has made up a full minute on Frank Luck, the winner from Thursday, and a great run by Briccis, goes into second, and Briccis second with 23.48, best result of the season for him, and the Latvians are flying. So despite his missed target on the standing, Briccis finds himself in second place, and he'll know only too well that victory would have been his had he not missed that final shot. So a great result for the 27-year-old policeman from Riga. He comes in to record second place at the moment, and a very good chance that he will hold on to the podium position, the first of his career, and certainly the best results we've seen from a Latvian this season. Well, no sign of Rojkov at the finish, but we're still waiting to get a full run through the top 10. And We will bring you that information just as soon as we can. He wasn't in the top 3, so maybe Rojkov coming across some problems in the final 2.5 kilometers. We've seen 1 or 2 falls, and a lot of those can be blamed on the conditions on the track. 1 or 2 pebbles coming through the thin snow cover, and no fault of the athlete whatsoever. But we haven't had news of Rojkov, who you see there was in 2nd place after that 2nd shoot, and he had a fairly comfortable margin of 12 seconds over Rikko Gross of Germany. But at the finish, it's still Gross ahead of Rojkov, but we're not certain where Rojkov has finished at the moment. Svend Fischer, 1 penalty, 17.54. Fischer goes into 2nd, and now a big battle between Svend Fischer and the current leader, Vladimir Dračev. Can Fischer pull it back? He was so slow in the individual on Tuesday, but he came back, suffered 2 penalties in the sprint event on Thursday, still came through to finish in 7th position, just 28 seconds down. So the order after the 2nd shoot has changed yet again. Dračev, Fischer and Rojkov the top 3. Rikko Gross in 4th. Briccis has come through to finish in 2nd ahead of Rikko Gross. So a brilliant ski by the Latvian over the last 2.5 kilometers. And I just wonder what's happened to the form of Bjørndalen. Have they got the waxing wrong on 2 consecutive races? The fact that Hannevold is well down the order and Frode Andersen also not skiing as well would suggest that is the case. And this season, more than any other, has seen the waxing technicians playing a very vital role indeed. And teams have had their success. The Germans in Kontiolahti, very, very cleverly indeed. They came through to take the majority of the medals there. In Japan, it was a mixed bag, but the Bulgarians getting it right. The Norwegians also doing very well in the men's events. In the women's sprint on Thursday, it was the French who got the waxing right and ended up with 3 in the top 4. So, Yannis Osbolt through to his 2nd shoot. Still another 22 competitors to go through that stage. The best of whom must be Frode Andersen of Norway. Clear, remember, after his first prone shoot. So if Andersen can go clear again, the current leader, Vladimir Dračev, is going to have to stay in the finish area to just ensure that he stays in that top spot. Andersen started 73 and started at the time 36 minutes after the first starter, Jay Häkkinen. But Andersen going well. He's just 6 or 7 seconds off the lead at the first shoot. And if he shoots clear, can certainly overtake the likes of Dračev. And we just wonder whether he can cope with the speed of Svend Fischer. Fischer now into his last 1.5 kilometers, and he only had to make up 5 seconds on Vladimir Dračev. But both Fischer and Dračev incurring 1 penalty loop apiece, and that would suggest that Dračev was skiing the quicker of the 2, but that may not be the case. Fischer not shooting as fast as normal. He took his time on the standing, and it paid off. He went clear, and I think their skiing performances are going to be fairly evenly matched. Well, Rikko Gross's support club is out, and although he is not going to take the victory here today, they'll be absolutely delighted that he has finished above Ulе-Einar Bjёrndalen. Bjørndalen's got to hope that not too many finish between them. They're at the finish standings, and there's nothing between them at the moment. Bjørndalen now hoping that someone else moves into the top 3, and it looks as though Svend Fischer may do him a favour on that count. Anyone who moves into the top 3 will mean that the points between Gross and Bjørndalen are reduced, so very tight indeed. Рафаэль Пуаре, good 2nd place on Thursday, finds himself down in 13th at the moment, and may well end up in 15th, with Fischer going well and Frode Andersen of Norway yet to shoot for the 2nd time, but in the top 5 after his first shoot. So having thought that all the action was going to be over very shortly, with the favourites all starting in that first group of 25 athletes, there is a chance that this one is going to run to the end. Mochizuki of Japan is, well, not a bad performance. He's currently on level terms with Dračev. He's still going to get his 5 rounds away, but if Mochizuki can shoot clear, he will find himself in the World Cup points for the first time this year. And he's not hanging back. Brilliant rhythm, just one quick breath in between each shot. But as is so often the case when you do that, it's the third shot, the fourth shot rather, that gives you problems. And the first 3 are okay, but by the time you get to the 4th and 5th, the lungs are really begging for oxygen, and Mochizuki pays the price. 2 loops for him, and his chances of World Cup points have gone with those 2 final shots. .56, Jakub Nakam comes in, 1:13, and so another Latvian into the top 20, but Nakam's not really managing to match the speed of his teammate Briccis, who finds himself in 2nd place at the moment. So, Svend Fischer, 23:26 the time at the moment. He's outside Dračev, but he goes into 2nd. Briccis pushed down to 3rd. Good news for Bjorndalen, better news for Svend Fischer. 2nd place for him. He's just 6 seconds behind Vladimir Dračev of Russia, with Briccis now into 3rd. One of the last challengers to today's race, Frode Andersen of Norway. He went clear on the first shoot, and he really picked the pace up over the middle 2.5 kilometers, and he has paid a very heavy price indeed. He's missed 4, the first 4 of his standing, all going wide, and Frode Andersen's challenge has disintegrated. So the Norwegians will be disappointed with that, and Andersen must, well, try and forget the performance as soon as he can, I think, is the only way to go after a miss of 4. Even with his shooting standards, that is bad. And Norway's best is going to remain Ulе-Einar Bjåndalen yet again. Andersen had plenty of time. He had over a minute advantage on Dračev when he came into the range, but unable to convert that and take advantage of it. But that wind may well be one of the reasons that he was missing. You can see that the telltale flags blowing violently across the range. We didn't get an anemometer reading for Andersen. So another look at the final standings at the moment. Still a few competitors to come in, but it's likely that the top 3 will remain the same. Interesting to see that Rojkov, having been in 2nd after the 2nd shoot, has dropped right down to 6th, and just 0.4 of a second behind Bjorndalen. So that means that Bjorndalen and Gross are going to remain within 1 point of each other, almost certainly after today's race. There's a possibility that they will end up on the same World Cup points with just 3 races remaining. So they do their best to keep the World Cup drama going, and that always adds to the season. In the women's events, it's a slightly different story. Magdalena Forsberg still has a lead of over 50. 54 points is the margin between herself and the best of the Germans, Uschi Diesel, with Kukleba of Russia a little bit further behind, having not raced as yet in Poklюka. Rishenkov, 1 penalty miss, 17:55, puts him already behind the time of the leaders, so even if he goes clear, Rishenkov is going to find himself 40 seconds down and is not going to threaten the top 5 or 6. Well, the last 3 were very smooth indeed. He snatched a little bit at the 2nd shot, and you can watch the trigger and almost guess what happens to the round as it goes down the range. And if you can see that trigger finger moving, then it's usually an indication that the shot has been rushed, and Rishenkov missing 1 as a result of that. Katrinusi, perhaps the best of the last men out, started at number 81. He's gone clear on the first shoot, and actually he's skiing very well indeed. But have a look at his percentage. 62% of targets hit in the sprint, 22 out of the 35 shots taken so far in the sprint events. And he's going to have to improve on that. He needs to make it 5 with 5. He needs a 100% record here if Katrinusi is going to challenge the likes of Russia's Drachev. Still got 25 seconds or so to stay within the leading time at the moment. And that is the end of that. So the lead is not going to change. Vladimir Drachev of Russia is going to take the victory here in Poklюка, and there'll be plenty who are delighted to see him take his first win of the season. In fact, his first win for 2 seasons. He won 4 races in 1996 and ended up at the top of the table on that season, but hasn't won since. And in fact, he hasn't even been on the podium since. So it will be a popular victory for Vladimir Drachev, the soldier from St. Petersburg, who heads the table here in Poklюка. He missed a target, but he is back to his best skiing performance. He was the fastest skier in Ruhpolding. And he was the fastest in Antolz in the individual, but on that occasion he missed a total of 7 shots. Today he only misses 1, and he has come through to head the table and take his 6th World Cup win. And 6 is not so far off the record of 9 held by Svend Fishер. Moshizuki won 56th the time, and not a bad performance by him, but he'll live to regret his standing shoot. Remember, he missed his last 2 targets, hit the first 8 and just rushed his standing shoot and missed the last 2. Peltola, the last man to start, and by all rights will be the last man to finish, but if he goes clear, he's going to find himself with a chance of getting top 25. 18:50 at the moment, and 18:55 is the time of his teammate Purinen. He's going to be just behind him, but Peltola will get the news that World Cup points are for the taking if he can just pick up 5 or 6 seconds over the next 2.5 kilometers. He's in 30th at the moment, and 10 seconds will push him up 5 places at least. And remember, it's just the top 25 who take World Cup points. But Peltola, despite shooting clear, is not going to threaten the top 5 places. And they will stay, as we see on the screen at the moment. Drachev getting his first win of the season. Fishер showing us that he's still on good form in 2nd place. Ilmar getting his best race of the season in 3rd place. Rikko Grosss will go up level at least, in fact 1 point ahead of Ulе-Éinar Bjёrndalen in the World Cup rankings. And so it stays as tight as it possibly could. And it's nice to see the 2 best in the world performing to their full potential today. Nakums of Latvia down in 17th place, but they'll be congratulating Ilmar Briccis, who is still in 3rd. Jay Häkkinen of the United States in 22nd, Palhuber and Carrara of Italy 23rd and 24th. Frank Luuk, the winner from Thursday, right down in 26th, and Frode Andersen recording exactly the same time as Frank Luuk, having incurred 4 penalties. So a good comeback by Frode Andersen, but he'll be wondering what went wrong. I have a suspicion that the wind and an appropriate picture was his problem. And this wind speed that was only 2 meters per second when they zeroed, picking up to around 5 or 6 meters per second when Frode Andersen came into the range. That is the name of the game. A little bit of luck involved, and in Frode Andersen's case, it was bad luck. So Drachev gets Russia back on winning form again. It's been the Norwegians and the Germans who've dominated the 15 results so far. They've won 11 of the 15, and Dračev getting another one for the Russians, and his first of the season. Well, that wraps up the action from Pokljuka. I can tell you that there's plenty more biathlon activity coming this weekend. Of course, we have the women's event that will be this afternoon, due to start at 12:30, and we'll have that live for you, so join us then if you can. And then the pursuit races tomorrow. Today's winner, Vladimir Dračev, will lead the field away, but it's very tightly packed at the top. Only 30 seconds or so between the top 6 starters, and we're guaranteed to see a few changes in the order. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. The start is scheduled for 10 o'clock, and it could be the most dramatic race of the season. Björndalen and Gros will be starting one after the other, and those two, of course, are the main contenders for this season's World Cup title. So there'll be a lot of nervous moments on the piste tomorrow, and it's going to be a question of who can hold their nerve the best. And certainly biathlon fans should tune into that. Oleg Rishenkov, the silver medalist from '97 World Championships in the individual, coming across, but he's not managed to continue that form this season, and not having his best of weeks. 68th in the individual, 48th on Thursday, and outside the top places again today. Number 81, Reni Katarinusi. Well, it was looking good at one stage, but one missed target has pretty much put him out of contention, and he's going to be just outside Ulе-Éinar Bjёrndalen, who is praying that no one comes between himself and Rikko Gross, currently in 4th and 5th positions. But nevertheless, a good finish for Katarinusi, and he finds himself in the top 10. And it's good news and interesting to see that so many of the nations are now managing to get athletes in the top 10. In the past, we've seen total domination by Russians, Germans and Norwegians, but we're now seeing the Finns doing it regularly, the Latvians with Brickus today in 3rd place. And of course, the Italians and French are also capable of getting up there. Рафаэль Пуаре, so unlucky not to take the title on Thursday. Just 0.3 of a second outside the winning time of Frank Luc. But the French have had a good week nonetheless. They won the women's sprint event. And who's to say that they're not going to win today's sprint event for the women? That's starting at 12:30. Pokljuka started 80, he comes in around a minute slower than Katarinusi of Italy, and a good 40 places lower down the order. So 2 minutes 20 separating the top 50, and that's bad news for Pokljuka, because he will miss out on tomorrow's race. Only the top 45 from today will qualify. Peltola with a clear shoot should by rights be one of those. It's going to be tight, but he comes in 1:43 behind the leaders, 37th position for Peltola. He will be on the starting grid tomorrow. One of the later starters, but there's a good chance for him to move up through the order. The shooting tomorrow is so important. 20 shots with penalty loops to ski if you miss targets, but only 12.5 kilometers to ski. So the penalties very severe indeed. That is the final rankings here in Pokljuka, the 2nd sprint event, the 3rd World Cup event to be held here. Dračev, Fischer and Brickus take the podium places. Rikko Gross and Björndalen, the 2 World Cup leaders, 4th and 5th. Rojkov and Globešnik of Slovenia, 6 and 7, with Italy's Reni Katarinusi getting into the top 8. Gredler of Austria, another good result by him, just ahead of Aidarov of Belarus. Hannavold, paying the price of missing one standing, is right down in 11th. Jean-Marc Chablos, another good result from him, in 12th position. Maluhin of Latvia, putting 3 Latvians in the top 30. and we'll see them coming good in the relay events in years to come. So Svend Fischer of Germany, a great race by him, and good to see him back on his best form. He was a little off the pace in the individual, but he was 7th in the first sprint event on Thursday. He's gone better today, ending up in 2nd place. So good news for the Germans, where Rikko Grosс doesn't succeed, either Frank Luck or Svend Fischer will. Well, the women's sprint, of course, is going to be at 12:30, but coming next on Eurosport, we have some men's downhill action. And, of course, Nick Fellows will bring you that from Kvitfjell in Norway, the site of the '94 Olympic downhill. So stay tuned for that. But from myself, Patrick Winterton, thanks for your company. Join us again at 12:30 for the women's race. Goodbye for now.